I still remember the night it all started. The night that changed everything I thought I wanted. Henry was asleep beside me, his breathing slow and deep, the kind of man who fell into rest after a long day of work. The room smelled faintly of motor oil and soap, his smell. The smell of a man who worked with his hands, who came home tired but never complained. And maybe that's what broke me. That quiet reliability. That same routine. Dinner, TV, sleep, repeat. No surprises. No excitement. Just love. Honest, simple love. I told myself that was enough. But deep down, I was suffocating in predictability. Then came James. He was everything Henry wasn't: smooth, confident, successful. He had that easy smile, those expensive suits, and the kind of life that glittered. He was Henry's business partner, which should have made him off limits. But boundaries start to blur when you start craving the attention your husband stopped giving. What began as harmless flirting over business lunches turned into late-night calls. Then hotel rooms. Then secrets. For years, I lived two lives. One as Henry's wife, mother of two boys, Tommy and Jake. And another as James's lover, the woman who whispered promises and built castles of lies. When the boys were born, I didn't ask too many questions. The timelines overlapped, and part of me didn't want to know the truth. I convinced myself it didn't matter. Henry loved them. He loved us. But love wasn't enough when the guilt started to whisper at night. The whispers turned into fear when Henry started watching me differently. Too quietly, too long. I told James the first was worried, and he just laughed. "He's too loyal to ever leave you, Susan," he said. He was right, at least that's what I believed. Until the day I came home and found Henry sitting at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. His face pale, his hands trembling. There was a small stack of papers beside him. I didn't need to read them. I knew. Paternity test results. My heart slammed against my ribs. My mouth went dry. I wanted to speak, to say something, but my tongue wouldn't move. Henry didn't even look up when he said, in a voice I barely recognized, "You should have told me the truth." That night, he didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just walked out to the garage and stayed there for hours. I texted James in panic. "He knows." James replied after 10 minutes, "Stay calm. He'll come around. He needs you." But I knew Henry better than James ever could. He wasn't the type to explode. He was the type to plan. Over the next few weeks, things fell off. Henry still went to work, still cooked dinner for the boys, still kissed me goodnight, but something in his eyes had gone dead. Like I was a stranger sleeping next to him. He stopped touching me. He stopped talking unless necessary. And every time I left the room, I felt like he was watching, listening. I tried to pretend everything was normal, school drop-offs, PTA meetings, real estate showings, but inside, my stomach twisted in constant dread. Then one day, James called from his warehouse, saying his inventory had been sabotaged. He sounded furious. "Someone's messing with me," he said. "And I swear it feels personal." A chill ran through me. I didn't need to guess who it was. Still, I tried to reassure him. "You're imagining things." Henry wouldn't. But even as I said it, I didn't believe myself. The next few days were chaos. News about chemical leaks, IRS investigations, and insurance fraud filled James's world. At the same time, my car broke down mysteriously at work. Its refrigeration unit exploded, ruining a major client meeting. I was humiliated. When I confronted Henry that night, he just looked at me with that same flat stare and said, "Maybe you should be more careful who you trust." That's when I knew. He was behind it. Every single thing. And yet, I couldn't prove it. He never raised his voice, never admitted anything. He just let the walls close in around me. I tried to run damage control. I moved some money, talked to lawyers, even had divorce papers drafted, ones that gave me full custody and forced Henry to pay support. It was stupid, but I thought I could still control the narrative. Then my sister Margaret went to deliver those papers. She came back pale and shaking, holding an envelope Henry had shown her, photos, texts, voice recordings. "He knows everything, Susan," she said. Everything. That night, I didn't sleep. Every lie I'd ever told was closing in on me like smoke in a burning house. The next message I got from James only made it worse. Henry texted me. Wants to meet about insurance. The old ice factory. I'm going. My blood went cold. I didn't even think. I just grabbed my keys and drove. If Henry was planning what I thought he was, then both of us were about to lose everything. The drive to the old ice factory felt endless. The steering wheel slipped in my sweaty palms, my heart hammering so hard it drowned out every sound. Streetlights flashed across my windshield like a metronome counting down to my own destruction. I knew Henry. He wasn't impulsive. He didn't make threats. If he'd called James to that place, something terrible was about to happen. When I pulled up, James's BMW was already there, parked crookedly beside the rusted gate. The building loomed ahead, dark and skeletal, its windows shattered like broken promises. Inside, the air was cold and metallic, the faint hum of old refrigeration systems echoing through the emptiness. I followed the sound of voices until I reached the main floor, then froze. Henry stood under the harsh white light, calm, collected, terrifyingly composed. James was across from him, his expensive shirt stained with sweat, fear etched all over his face. On the walls behind Henry, massive screens flickered to life. Text messages, photos, audio recordings, every dirty secret, every lie I had ever sent to James. And there it was, the one I had sent during one of my crueler moments. Henry's such a fool. When this is all over, he'll be paying child support for your sons. The sound of my own voice filled the space. My knees went weak. I wanted to run, to hide, to disappear.
Henry turned to me then.
His eyes weren't filled with hate. They were worse than that. They were calm, surgical, like a doctor about to cut out a disease. Welcome, Susan, he said. You're just in time to watch the truth unravel. Henry, please. I stepped forward, but he raised a hand. Don't, he said, and that single word felt like a wall between us. Not tonight. James tried to speak first. Henry, listen. But Henry's voice cut through him like glass. I listened for years while you two destroyed my family. Tonight, you'll listen to me. He walked over to a table lined with folders, thick, organized stacks of paper. He lifted one, tossing it toward me. It slid across the dusty floor and stopped at my feet. Go ahead, he said. Open it. I did. And I wished I hadn't. Inside were printed copies of everything, text threads, bank transfers, call recordings, even copies of legal drafts with my signature half completed. He'd documented everything. Every moment of betrayal. Every transaction. Every lie. Henry, please, I whispered. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, he said. You lied about our children. You stole from our joint account. You planned a divorce that would have left me bankrupt paying for kids that weren't mine. The words hit like a hammer. I was scared. I said, tears spilling over. You stopped looking at me. You stopped wanting me. I thought you didn't care anymore. He let out a bitter laugh. So you fixed that by sleeping with my business partner? By lying for 13 years. James stepped forward then, his voice trembling but angry. This is between you and her, Henry. Leave me out of it. Henry turned slowly toward him, that same chilling composure in his voice. Oh, James. You're not out of anything. You're part of the equation. One of the screens changed bank records, company documents, hidden income streams. I didn't understand at first, then realization hit me. Henry had found everything, James's tax fraud, the shell accounts, even the fake invoices he used to launder money. You used my name on half your deals, Henry said. You thought I would notice? The IRS did. James's face turned pale. You wouldn't. I already did, Henry replied. They'll be knocking on your door soon. Enjoy federal prison. James lunged forward, shouting, You son of a... Henry sidestepped with effortless calm, grabbed the man's wrist and twisted. James cried out as Henry slammed him against the concrete wall. Then, without hesitation, he hit him once, hard. Blood spilled from James's nose, splattering across the floor. Henry, stop. I screamed. Please. He turned to me, breathing steady, eyes sharp. You think this is violence? No, Susan. This is justice. Real justice. The kind that leaves scars where no one can see. James fell to the ground, clutching his face, gasping. Henry stood over him like a storm that had finally reached land. Then he turned back to me. You once said I was boring. Predictable. A fool.
His voice softened.
You were right about one thing. I am predictable. I fix things. That's what I do. And tonight, I'm fixing the biggest mistake of my life. He grabbed a remote control and pressed a button. All the screens flickered again, except this time, they were live streaming. My photos. My messages. My voice calling him pathetic, planning to take everything. What are you doing? I cried. He smiled faintly, telling the truth. To everyone. The live chat on the screen started to fill with comments, names I recognized. My coworkers. My clients. Even my sister. The world was watching me come apart, second by second. I felt my chest tighten. My reputation, my business, everything I'd built, it was gone in an instant. You're destroying me, I whispered. Henry's reply was quiet, but it cut deeper than any scream.
No, Susan.
You destroyed yourself. I'm just making sure everyone knows who you really are. I fell to my knees. I couldn't breathe. Henry walked to the exit, then paused, looking back one last time. The lawyers will handle everything. Don't contact me again. Henry, please, what about the boys? I begged. He hesitated, just for a moment. Then, they'll be fine. They'll have a father who loves them enough to protect them from the woman who lied to them their entire lives. And then he was gone. James was still on the floor, bleeding and cursing under his breath. I didn't even look at him. My whole body shook as I stared at the screens, each one showing a different piece of the life I'd ruined. When I finally stumbled outside, the cold air hit me like punishment. My car felt foreign. My hands, my face, my reflection, all unrecognizable. By the time I got home, the calls had already started. My office, my mother, my friends, my sister crying. It was over. Everything. And for the first time, I realized Henry hadn't taken revenge. He had taken back control. I had spent years believing I was the smart one, the manipulator, the one who would come out on top. But Henry, quiet, simple, loyal Henry, had played the long game. And he'd won. I don't remember the weeks that followed the night at the ice factory. They blurred together. Court papers, news headlines, phone calls I didn't answer, faces that wouldn't look at me. My name spread online like wildfire. The live stream Henry had started didn't just end that night. People had screen recorded it, re-uploaded it, dissected it. Cheating wife gets exposed live. Woman lies about paternity for 13 years. I had become a story. A cautionary tale. James disappeared the next morning. His company shut down within a week. News broke about tax fraud, and the IRS seized everything. Last I heard, he'd filed for bankruptcy and was facing trial. He didn't call. He didn't text. He didn't even try to save me. I suppose that was fair. We'd both built our world on lies, and it crumbled on us both. My job was next. My real estate license got suspended after the firm received complaints and bad press. Clients pulled out. My phone became a graveyard of missed calls and messages that began with "I'm sorry, but..." My mother wouldn't speak to me. My sister Margaret avoided eye contact the one time she brought me groceries. She just left them on the counter and said quietly, "You should have told the truth when you had the chance." The silence of the house was unbearable. Every room screamed of what I'd lost. Henry's laughter, the boys running through the hallway, the smell of coffee in the mornings. It was like living in a museum of my own mistakes. The divorce hearing came 6 months later. I sat in that cold courtroom with shaking hands while the judge read through the evidence Henry had submitted. Evidence I couldn't deny because every piece of it was my doing. The DNA results were official. Neither Tommy nor Jake were biologically Henry's. But he didn't contest custody to punish me. He fought to protect them.
And he won.
When the judge said the words, "Full custody awarded to Mr. Dalton," something inside me broke that I can't describe. It wasn't the anger of losing. It was the shame of realizing that, even after everything, Henry was still the better parent. I was ordered to pay restitution for the years of falsified child support, for the financial fraud tied to our joint account, and for the damages my lies had caused. I had nothing left. I sold the jewelry James had given me, sold the car, moved into a one-bedroom apartment above a grocery store. And that's where I still live, the kind of place where the walls hum with the sound of other people's lives. Sometimes I hear mothers downstairs, calling their kids for dinner. Their voices echo through the vents, and I have to cover my ears to stop myself from crying. Henry never reached out. He didn't need to. His silence said everything. But I still saw him, not in person but from a distance. Once, at Tommy's Little League game. I went early, stood behind the fence near the parking lot, so no one would notice me. There he was, Henry, sitting in the bleachers, laughing, cheering, the boys on the field smiling every time they looked toward him. He looked free, lighter, like the burden he'd carried for years had finally been lifted. I waited until the game ended, then walked toward the bleachers. My legs felt like they were made of glass. He saw me before I spoke. His face didn't change, not anger, not hatred, just quiet acknowledgement. "Henry," I said softly.
Please.
"Can we talk?" He didn't look at me. His eyes stayed on the field where Tommy and Jake were running around with their teammates. "There's nothing to talk about, Susan," he said calmly. "The boys, they miss me." My voice cracked. "They ask about me, don't they?" He nodded once, still not turning. "They're in therapy, learning how to process everything. They're doing fine." I took a step closer, tears burning down my cheeks. "I made mistakes, Henry." He finally looked at me. His expression wasn't cruel, but it wasn't soft either. It was the look of a man who had once loved deeply and learned never to again. "You didn't make mistakes," he said quietly. "You made choices. And now you're living with them." I swallowed hard. "I lost everything." "Good," he said, his tone steady. "That means you understand what it feels like." The word hit me like a blow. Not loud, not angry, just final. I wanted to scream that I was sorry, that I'd do anything to make it right. But what does sorry fix when you've burned down someone's life? I just stood there, crying quietly, while Henry turned back to the field. Tommy hit the ball hard, a clean double, and the crowd cheered. Henry stood, smiling proudly. He didn't look at me again. And that's when it hit me. He'd truly moved on. Not to another woman, not to another life, but to peace. That night, I went home and pulled out the old Polaroid I'd once given James. The one Henry had used to expose me. My reflection stared back from the glossy paper, a younger woman, confident, selfish, sure of her own control. I stared at her for a long time, then fed the photo into the shredder I'd bought to destroy court papers. The machine hummed softly as it tore that image apart. My arrogance, my sins, my illusion of power. For the first time in years, I felt something like truth settle inside me. Not peace, not forgiveness. Just acceptance. Henry had rebuilt his life. I was still fixing mine, piece by broken piece. Sometimes, late at night, I think about his last words in court when the judge finalized everything. Words he said calmly, without looking at me. Some people fix machines. Some fix lives. I had to do both. He wasn't wrong. He had fixed everything, even the mess I made. And me? I'm still learning how to live in the wreckage I created with my own hands.